My name is Nick and welcome to my first YouTube video. As you can see, I have Haven playing and not a Gigabyte video card being torn down and put together. I've ripped all the stock audio out of this video and will be doing a voiceover instead. The video card being torn down and put together is a Gigabyte GeForce GTX 970 Mini ITX OC. I had taken it apart a few weeks back with the intent to clean all the dust out of it. Got it apart and cleaned before realizing I didn't have any thermal pads on hand. I am not doing a full teardown today. I will only be pulling the cooler off, putting new thermal pads and thermal grease on, and putting it back together. Enjoy! And here we have a cheap transition. Alright, as you can see, I have the video card with the back facing up, and I'm going to start unscrewing the 4 screws next to the GPU. And there goes number 1, and I'm pointing at all 4. Make sure you put the screws somewhere you're not going to lose them. I have them in a glass bowl off screen. And now you're going to see me take out the other 2 screws on the back. Alright, because the fan was not plugged in on this card and there is no thermal compound, you'll notice I was able to just lift everything off with no hesitation. Usually when you're taking a card apart, there will be some stick between the thermal grease and the thermal pads. And at this point you're going to set them aside and separate them in some manner. After getting our card and cooler separated, we are going to measure our thermal pads. The easiest way to measure thermal pads is to push them down on what they belong on top of. The thermal pads being fairly malleable will allow them to show the indents of what you've pressed them on. I am attempting to show this, but I'm guessing my Handycam, which isn't super new and doesn't have super high resolution, doesn't give you a good image of that. Now that our pads are cut, we need to take the plastic backing off of them and place them on the video card. Because of the size of the pad I started with, it took me 2 pieces for this area. Here you're going to see me do something that hopefully you'll never have to do. I'm test fitting the cooler to make sure that the thickness of the pads I have is correct. You could contact the manufacturer and find out how thick of pads you need. Chances are they're going to tell you don't take off the thermal pads, don't take off the cooler, it's going to void your warranty. I'm going to find out here that I need to put another set in because I'm using 0.5mm pads and I need a 1mm pad. Now also, like an idiot, I didn't take off the top plastic binding or cover, which, as you notice, I struggled to get off on both pieces. After struggling for way longer than I care to admit to, I ended up pulling both thermal pads off the card to get the plastic covering off of the second side. I then cut a second set of pads. The long one was easy. It was the length my pad started at. The short one I just used one of the plastic covers as a guide for. Watching the video while editing, I realized I laid these in a kind of stupid way. I laid the short one on top of the short one and the long one on top of the long one. But live and learn. One more quick test fit, everything looked good. And my thermal pads came off with the cooler. Luckily, this is not a big deal. As you can kind of see on the edge of the screen, I end up cheating to cut my last couple thermal pads. This GPU actually has really nice indents on the underside of the cooler for where the last 3 thermal pads go. So after cheating, I quickly apply the 3 thermal pads after editing out the ridiculous amount of time it took me to peel the backings off of them. At this point, I believe everything with my thermal pads is correct, but I do another test fit just to verify that these last 3 thermal pads are the correct thickness and they do look like they're about right. Without any issue, I pull the cooler off, and of course all the thermal pads stick to the cooler. Time to finish this thing up. Let's go ahead and start by plugging the fan in and moving on to thermal paste. This is generally the easiest part. You just squeeze the tube and it comes out. And then you keep squeezing the tube and it in theory starts to come out. And then you squeeze a little more and you wonder why it's not coming out. You lift it up and start playing with it a little bit. And you try again because, of course, you know you have thermal paste in this tube. And you squeeze some more and you still can't figure it out. And then you edit out the fact that you kept doing this for way longer than a sane person would and come back with a new tube. After coming back with a new tube, I empty the tube onto this GPU, mostly because I thought this tube had more in it than it did. I'm a big proponent of using a ton of thermal paste on a GPU, especially because they do have that groove, for lack of a better word, around them where any excess can go into. At that point, flip the card over, screw everything back in, and you should have a working video card, assuming it worked before you started. Now that this card is together, it does run at about 70 degrees Celsius when it's under load. This is my first time using any video editing software. I'm using DaVinci Resolve. If you know of any good resources for DaVinci, please let me know. If you liked the video, please comment, like, and or subscribe. And come back in about a week or so, and I'm hoping to have a video of me putting a Kraken X61 in my wife's system.